Welcome back to America Tonight. In our virtual green room, Michael Murphy. He's the author of Love Unfiltered. Michael, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, Kate.
So, the stages of grief, a lot of people understand what the stages of grief are, but you don't think about them, and let's be honest, until you have to pull them out. And you unfortunately found yourself in that situation as you lost your, wife to cancer. Is that part of what led you on this journey to create this book?
Well, my wife, her love for me and then her passing really transformed my heart and really cut away my defenses. And I like to say, when I was in that stage of grief, God was able to come in and slice open my heart, take out all the arrogance and self-centeredness and replace it with love. And as a result of that love, shortly thereafter, I met another woman who was going through breast cancer stage 4, and she didn't have the resources that we had, and I saw the injustice in the world. So that's why I started this foundation to help women as they go through their cancer treatment, but most of our clients are below the poverty line.
Yeah, so talk about that. So talk about what that part of the journey has been like for you. Is it because it was so eye-opening as you watched what happened with your wife, and then you meet somebody else who doesn't have like you say, the resources to fight back?
Yeah, it was a real shocker. My wife, she was diagnosed at 29. She passed away at 38. But that entire time, once she had me, she had a lot of love and support from friends and family. We had resources. We had good insurance. And then shortly after she passed away, I met a woman who was a minority, didn't have the resources, didn't have a husband to go with her. And I started traveling with her to her doctor's appointments, minor surgeries, what have you. I got to know her. And I realized that they kind of talked over her head or talked down to her, didn't really listen. And the catalyst was when I took her to our own oncologist, and he said to her, Amanda, the best protocol to extend your life are these 3 chemotherapies simultaneously. Unfortunately, your insurance will only pay for one, so that's all I can give you. And frankly, I was just taken aback by that, and I instinctively just said, hey, here's my credit card. You give her whatever she needs. And unbeknownst to me, that was the seed of what is now the Love for Margot Foundation. And I've met with personally over the last 2 years 70 women as they go through cancer treatments, and we do various things to help them along their way. So it's very rewarding, and it's a great way to get out of your own self and to trump grief, if you will.
Yeah, good for you. And so by doing that, you are healing yourself, right?
Yeah, exactly. The only way to really find healing, I believe we're called to love and serve one another, and that's how we've been able to evolve this long. And if humanity doesn't resonate with that message again, I think things don't look too bright for us.
Yeah. So you start the foundation, you start to tell people about it, and how do you raise awareness, and how do you get the word out through the clutter?
Well, we have some key partners. Like in San Francisco, we have the Shanti Project. They're a partner of ours. They've been around for 40 years. We have Gilda's Club in the Coachella Valley near Palm Springs. And then we have the county hospital here in Oakland. So social workers pretty much refer to us their clients that really need what we have to offer to them.
Yeah. And so if somebody listening right now is going through something really tough, they can actually apply for a grant, can't they? That's
correct. The website is www.lovefrommargot.com, and on that website is their application for grants.
So we get that this has become such a big passion of yours, and how terrific, and really helps you in giving back and go through the process. So if we go back to the Love Unfiltered and we talk about the stages of grief that you went through, this was something that really pulled you out of it. In the very beginning, what was that like?
Well, it's surreal. You really go into a state of shock. My wife, 7 months before she passed away, her doctor told her that, there's breast cancer spread to your brain, and if you do nothing, you have 6 weeks to live, and if you treat it, you have 6 months to live. Mm-hmm. So, even though I knew her death was coming and you could see her body deteriorating, you always think you have one more day until you don't. And then that's when reality slaps you so hard in the face that you go into a state of shock, and everything really becomes surreal. And what I learned about grief early on is, there's the stages of grief, which came from Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. But really, grief, it's not steps. It's a spiral. So you might be angry today and get through it tomorrow, but it doesn't mean it's going to resurface someday. So you have to envision a spiral, and as you heal, anything things can change at a moment's notice. Anything can trigger a feeling that, leads you back into that grief. But you have to realize that as long as you're moving forward, you're eventually going to get to the other side of this.
I like that, visualizing a spiral. That's a good thing for people, I think, to hang on to, because you're right. When you get these processes, you assume, well, geez, if I just do these 7 things, I just do these 3 things, then I am through, and I'm going to fight through that, but it's not the reality of how you can get knocked back. So you said it, when you get knocked back, Michael, what do? How do you come back out of being knocked back for a day?
Well, that's such a difficult question to answer, because I think, every time you get knocked back, you find certain techniques to keep you going. Sometimes you just stay in bed and just say, hey, that's the best I have today. Other days, what I found, for me to get through my grief was working with these women. And people always say to me, well, how do you do this? How do you relive this after you've gone through this for 9 years with your wife? And honestly, I have to tell you, every experience, every moment with a client of ours, I become strengthened and I become inspired. I tell people, knowing what I know now, I never would have gotten into the nonprofit world. And now that I'm in it, I could never get out of it. It's one of those catch-22.
No kidding. I love that. You wouldn't get out of it now. Absolutely. You heard me say in the beginning about Robin Williams, and it's interesting because I think he's really touched off a lot of emotions in people, as I mentioned when I was introducing you, of people that didn't know him, but they just felt like they knew him, or they got a great laughter from one of his movies or whatever it is. And it's obviously different in the way people die suddenly, and of course with Robin Williams, if you're talking about suicide, and then there's all those questions that hang around. But I think the common denominator is, because I've gone through loss too, is you have the why question that just hangs around like a bunch of mosquitoes, doesn't it? And I think you have to sort of swat it away. Do you feel that same way?
Yeah, I say drop those questions like a hot potato, because it's going to get you nowhere except for more pain and suffering, especially in a situation like that. The only thing I would say about that, he obviously, assuming he did commit suicide, he obviously could not take the pain any longer. And he really believed, even though it was false belief, he really believed that he had to get out of his body to end the suffering. In reality, he just needed to change the way he thought. But, it's impossible to judge what somebody else is going through. And my heart goes out especially to his wife, and I hope they don't have regret and questions. And just, what I learned about reality is don't fight it, accept it.
Yeah, well said. Just embrace it and just move on from that. So, Love Unfiltered, tell me about the coming out for Love Unfiltered and putting it together, and how that was writing it.
It's funny. I started to write a memoir, which I'm still writing. It's about 90% done. And it's really a memoir about the love affair between my wife and myself. And in the middle of writing that memoir love story, I wrote this book, Love Unfiltered, which is really an inspirational personal development book. And it tells my story, how I came from an alcoholic home. I ran away from home at the age of 14. I was a total loser up until age 23. I met someone who said, hey, your life is a mess. I think I can help you. And he literally taught me 1 hour a week for 7 weeks on how to create and manifest anything I desired. And the way he taught me and the way we did it is it's like The Secret or Think and Grow Rich on steroids, because he gave me a twist that in the thousands of books I've read on manifestation, I've never read anybody suggest what he suggested to me that I do at the end of this process. And as a result, I believe we can manifest. We're constantly manifesting whatever the reality in our life is. We just do it unconsciously. And I say to people, hey, we spend more time planning a vacation than we do planning our life. So let's sit down and let's plan what you really want with your life. Let me show you how to write that intention in a powerful way. and then let me give you a little twist that almost automatically ensures that it will become reality for you.
The little twist, so you're teasing us with that. Do you talk about the twist in your book?
Well, I'm going to tell you, but I wish people would buy the book. But what he taught me at the end of this, and so we met every hour for a week, once a week for an hour for 7 weeks, and I had 6 intentions, and I had nothing. I mean, I was a total loser. I had no education. I had no money, and I became a multimillionaire using this intention and this power. And basically, at the end of this, what he had me do is, in my own voice, and we're going back to the early 80s, so imagine, we had a cassette player and a microphone, but in my own voice, I recorded a script that put me into a self-hypnotic trance, and in the background, he played theta brainwave music, and then I recorded in my own voice each of my intentions for these areas in my life. For example, I wanted to make $10,000 a month. Well, I ended up making hundreds of thousands of dollars a month. I wanted to own my own house. I ended up with a $4 million house. But I tell the story in light of this new realization since the loss of my wife, that I realized that to manifest a bunch of material stuff really is not our true meaning or highest purpose why we're here on this planet. And if whatever we're going to create or manifest, if we do it in light of a higher purpose of love and service to one another, then it only becomes that much more powerful. And so really that's what the book is about.
Love it. Perfect way to end this. Michael Murphy, Love Unfiltered. Pick it up. Thank you so much.